Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. I'm happy to have you here with me today in the kitchen where we are going to make 6 different varieties of cookies. And once we're finished that, we are going to get to planting some seeds. I know those two things might seem entirely unrelated, and I guess they are really unrelated, but they are both things that I need to get done today. And I have a window of time this morning to do them. So I thought I would do both and share them with you, especially because we are gearing up for gardening season, which if you've been here for a while, you know is something that I am really passionate about. It brings me so much joy and I can hardly wait to get going. So we're going to be planting hundreds of seeds. We're going to be making what may turn out to be hundreds of cookies in the end, so it should be a really fun video. Before we get into today's video, I wanted to share with you something that is really exciting, something that we do only every 3 or 4 months or so, and that is to offer a free month to our membership community. Honestly, wasn't sure if it was possible to create an authentic community online, but we have managed to do it, I am happy to say. And what it is a platform which is off YouTube where I share all kinds of content. We have a comprehensive library with lots of information in there on all the things that I talk about here, from gardening, livestock raising, cooking from scratch, making sourdough bread, all of that fun stuff. But kind of the meat and potatoes of the membership community is the fact that we get to meet up quite regularly. We actually have 2 different meetings during the week that you can choose to join, where we meet as a community. I'm always there and we talk about all the things related to a life made by hand. One of my favorite parts of the community, there's a lot of things I love about it, but is where I get to meet with you one-on-one. So when you sign up for the community, we book a one-on-one call and it's around 30 minutes long, and we just get to know each other a little bit, and I get to learn how I can best serve you. So what are your interests? What are the things that you want to learn about? They're just such a great way to kind of break the ice a little bit and help to welcome you into the community. One of the things that we really strive to do here on our channel and in all of our presence across social media is to be a calm place, I guess, in the face of a world that can be pretty polarized right now and challenging. And that is a very deliberate choice on my part. It's not that I don't have strong opinions myself, that I'm not impacted by things that are going on in the world, all of that. It isn't that. It's actually just that I've chosen to create a place that is free of that, because goodness knows we are exposed enough to the negative things that are going on in the world all over the place. You guys don't need to come to my channel and experience that. And I would say that we have done a really great job with bringing that exact same energy that you get here when you come to my channel into our membership community. It is a place to learn specific things, to surround yourself with people that have similar interests as you do, and in an uplifting, positive, and kind space. And that's something that I am probably the most proud of that we've managed to create with this community. We started it back in May of 2024, and it has just developed into one of the most joyful and, fulfilling aspects of my job. And on that note, I wanted to cordially invite you to join our membership community. I'll put a link in the pinned comment and down in the show notes below, and you'll get your first month for free. That includes the one-on-one with me, all of the meetings that we have throughout, and all the other freebies that we offer as part of the community. And if you decide at the end of the month that it is not for you, which I really hope you don't, it's a really great community, but if you do, there is no obligation at all. I'll put the link down in the show notes for you and in the pinned comment if you would like to join us. And that is the end of my sales pitch. And I just feel so awkward when I'm doing stuff like that. I'm so sorry if that was really awkward. I really do love it. And I really do want to express how much I love it. But also selling is just, it's hard. So that's that. On that note, let's get into these cookie recipes. So I'll run you through the ones that I'm going to do today. We are going to do 3 recipes out of the Little Mountain Ranch family cookbook. We are going to do wagon wheel cookies, ginger cookies, and chocolate chip oatmeal cookies out of here. And then we are going to do 3 recipes. I really wanted to do a traditional snickerdoodle recipe. I don't have a really good one myself. So this one is called a traditional snickerdoodle recipe, and it is from howtocook.com. And this one is easy strawberry cookies, and this is from Italian in My Kitchen, and I'll make sure that I link the recipes that I got off the internet down in the show notes for you. And then best rhubarb cookies. So I have a lot of strawberries that I bought from Costco when we went to Costco. So that's why we have the strawberry one. And I have some canned rhubarb that I canned up last year that I needed to get used up. So that's why we're doing the rhubarb cookies. So we're going to make all these cookies. And I haven't yet decided if I want to bake them all and then freeze them baked. I'm kind of leaning towards that because that just even makes it easier. Just to pull them out and just let them thaw and then take them wherever we want to go or have cookies available. But we'll see how much time we end up with. I already have my oven preheated at 350 degrees because that's the temperature for the majority of these recipes. And we're just going to jump right into it. So I mentioned to you the other day that I had broken my plastic bowl for my Ankerstrom mixer. So this is the bowl that I use for bread making, and it has a different style bowl that has a post that comes out of the middle for doing cookies and whipping things up. But when I mentioned that on my video, somebody said that you can still use this, which is the kneading, I guess we'll call it a wheel, for doing cookies. So I thought we would give that a try. So I think I am going to do the recipes that are new to me first, because that sounds fun. And then we'll get into the ones that are my recipes after. So let's do these rhubarb cookies first. We need 2 cups of brown sugar. So I have laid all of the base ingredients that I need out for these recipes. I haven't measured them though. I have been trying to pre-measure before I film my videos recently just to make them a little bit more efficient. But with so many recipes today, I just decided I would measure as we went. So we need 2 cups of brown sugar and 1 cup of butter. And I was smart and did take my butter out of the freezer. We buy our butter in bulk from Costco when we do Costco trips, and I keep it in the freezer. So I always try to remember to take it out, especially if I'm going to do something like this, like cookies where I need softened butter. I'm going to do 1 cup of butter. And then we need 2 eggs. And I'm just doing these single batches, these cookies, rather than doubling them up. Paddle here. I think that the bread hook is going to work better for this. I do have a hand mixer, which I can pull out, but I'd really rather use this if I can. I did order another bowl. About a year ago when I first got this, I found a glass mixing bowl for the Ankerstrom, but I cannot find it anywhere. But I did find another stainless steel one, but that's specifically for with the beaters and for cookie making. And so I did order that. It just hasn't come in the mail yet. So let's try this and see if this works. All right, that worked. So then we're gonna add 3.5 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. A teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of baking soda. And so we're going to get this all mixed together. Yum. That is tasty. Okay, now into here we are going to add, how much do we need? 2 cups, and this is calling for finely diced rhubarb. I have stewed rhubarb here, so it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to add 1.5 cups or so there, and I'll mix this in, and then I'll see if I need to add a little bit more for consistency, because this is going to add a little bit more liquid to the recipe, so I don't want to add too much. Okay, we have our first batch done. So I'm just going to get a cookie sheet. I'm going to put some parchment paper on it, and we'll pop these ones in the oven. And then we'll move right on to our next one. You know, parchment paper was kind of a revelation to me when I started sharing cooking on YouTube, because I never used parchment paper prior to that. I just would grease my cookie sheets. Probably why my cookie sheets look like this after 20 years. But oh my goodness, parchment paper is the thing. So now we're just going to take some of our cookie dough, which is a little soft because of that stewed rhubarb. So I'm gonna make sure I give these guys some space because they're gonna spread. Okay, we're gonna pop these in and see how much they spread on this round, and I might put them a little bit closer together if they don't spread that much. Now this one actually needs to be at 375. To just conserve on time, I want to be as efficient as I can be, so I'm going to leave these cookies in here to go in for the next one, and then I'll be able to clean that out and get another batch going. But I'm going to get another batch going over here with my hand mixer. And I just realized that I do have a recipe that requires chilling. So I'm going to get that one going, and then I can pop that bowl in the fridge to be chilling and then get on to yet another recipe. My goal is within the next 30 minutes to have all 6 recipes made, and then it's just a matter of running them through the oven. And while that's happening, we can go over and start planting seeds. And hopefully by around 11 o'clock in the morning, we'll be able to have a whole bunch of seeds planted along with 6 different cookie recipes. Okay, so this is my Grandma Pam's wagon wheel cookies, and they're basically a chocolate crinkle cookie. I didn't even know that they were normally called crinkle cookies until I shared this recipe here on my channel a few years ago, and everyone pointed out that they knew them as crinkle cookies. So I will always call them wagon wheel cookies because that's what my grandma called them. We are going to add 6 eggs into our bowl, and this recipe actually has to chill for at least 3 hours, if not overnight. So I'm glad I'm getting to this one right now. And I can actually just pop this outside. It's cold enough outside that it can chill there instead of taking up room in my fridge, which I do not have. So there we go, we've got 6 eggs. This recipe makes quite a few cookies, so don't be too alarmed with the amount of sugar. Well, maybe you should be a little alarmed because it is 3 cups of sugar, which is a lot of sugar. But the way I always look at cookies is I only ever have, 2 or 3, maybe sometimes 4 cookies at a time. So it's not like I'm eating all 3 cups of sugar at once, right? Okay, this is my 1.5 cup measure. So I just need 2 of those for the sugar. And we're gonna beat that up. And you want to beat that until there's lots of air in it. It's nice and light, kind of fluffy a little bit, and then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of vanilla to this, 3/4 cup of oil. I'm using olive oil just because we use olive oil for everything, so we don't mind the flavor. But you could use an avocado oil or an organic canola oil if you prefer or not a strong flavor in your oil that you add. Give that another little mix. We're going to add a cup of cocoa and check on our cookies here. Looking good. Those cook for between 12 and 16 minutes. 3 cups of flour. 3 tablespoons of baking powder. And then we're going to mix this together and then we'll chill it. I have had no luck with beaters lately. I bought one, I don't know, about a year ago, and the whisks were really fine whisks instead of thick, kind of old-fashioned ones like these ones are. And I just did not like it at all. It just did not work very well. So then I bought this one, which I really liked for a while, but now all of a sudden the beaters are falling out randomly. So if anyone can recommend for me a really good hand mixer, I need a new one. Okay, so what you're looking for here, you can see that it's almost like a really thick cake dough, or even more like a brownie batter. Once it has a chance to chill in the fridge for those 3 hours or overnight, it'll thicken up enough to actually make balls. And we're going to roll these balls into icing sugar before we bake them. So I just threw a plate on there. I'm gonna go put this outside to chill. So we can definitely put them a bit closer together because they didn't spread too much. We'll put these on a cooling rack and get our next batch in. The next ones we're going to make are strawberry cookies. And because strawberry and rhubarb taste just fine together, I'm not going to worry about cleaning this out before I put our next batch in. So for this one, we need 2 large eggs, 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 cup of oil, teaspoon of vanilla, whoop, big teaspoon of vanilla, 2 tablespoons, plus a cup of sugar, and we're just going to whisk that together, and 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, okay, then we're going to mix this together and then add 2 cups of chopped strawberries. So I have my strawberries here, so I'm just going to chop them up a little bit more finely. I feel like we have a bit more than 2 cups here, so I'm just going to double check that. Nope, that was pretty well perfect. So now we're going to gently mix in our strawberries. Here, I think I'm going to use my hands for that. Okay, next round out. And strawberry cookies in. Next up, Snickerdoodles. Okay, 2 cups of butter. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of butter. 1 cup, 2 cups. You definitely want to make sure that your butter is soft. 3.5 cups of sugar. Just gonna take a little of that sugar out. I was supposed to put half the sugar in, beat it into the butter, and reserve this for a different step. So we're gonna put that to the side. Now we want to combine the 2 cups of butter with the 1.5 cups of sugar, and we want to mix it until it is light and fluffy, and it says it takes around 5 minutes. Okay, we have our light and fluffy butter and sugar here. So I'm just scraping down the edges. 4 teaspoons of vanilla, 4 eggs. And we're gonna mix this up for another 2 minutes. So now we're gonna add 5.5 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar. This recipe called for unsalted butter, which I don't have. So it also calls for 2 teaspoons of salt, but I'm not going to add that because I use the salted butter. That's always something to keep in mind if when you're doing recipes, is don't add extra salt, especially for things like cookies, if you have used salted butter. I am going to run out of cooling racks. I have a couple more of the strawberry cookies to make, and then we're going to form our Snickerdoodles, and they have to chill for 20 minutes. So while they're chilling, we'll make our ginger cookies and our oatmeal. If you have the cookbook, this one's on page 117. We need 3/4 cup of butter, 1 cup of brown sugar. Give that a mix. An egg. 1/4 cup of molasses, and mix again. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a good teaspoon of ginger, teaspoon of baking powder. And now we'll mix it all together. It fell out again. Jeepers. We're going to add a little bit of sugar in a bowl, and we're going to use this to roll our ginger snaps in. So you can chill this dough if you want. It is a fairly soft dough, not super sticky, nothing like those other cookies I was doing earlier. But I don't. So we're gonna roll them in our sugar here and then bake them for 10 to 12 minutes. So you have a couple of different options with the way you bake these. You can bake them until they are kind of dry all the way through, and that will give you a much crispier ginger snap. Or you can do like I do and pull them out when they're still soft on the inside so that they're more of a chewy ginger snap. So we're going to run, I think, about 45 minutes over my time goal. So I was hoping to have both the planting and the cookies, or at least the dough, made by 11, but I think it's going to be more like 11:45 when I'm actually finished all of that, but I still feel like that's pretty good. The last one we're going to do, and this is probably one of my favorite recipes, is the oatmeal cookies, and this one's on page 119 in the cookbook. This one has some modifications that you can do. So you can add in all different kinds of things like raisins, chopped dates. I really love chopped dates in these. You can add chocolate chips. What else do I have in here? You could add walnuts, lots of different things. I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. We'll see what I feel inspired with. 1 cup of butter. I feel like I just keep saying butter and sugar because that's kind of the base for most cookie recipes. And with good reason, since butter is delicious. 1 cup of white sugar and 1 cup of brown sugar. And then 2 eggs, and we're going to beat this together. Most recipes, when it comes to baking, call to mix your wet ingredients, then mix your dry ingredients in a separate bowl, and then incorporate those all together. I have those instructions in my cookbook as well, although that is something that I very rarely do. What I normally do is get all my wet ingredients mixed, put my dry ingredients on top, and just kind of whisk them lightly with a fork, and then mix everything together so I don't have to dirty another bowl. So we're going to do 1.5 cups of oats in here. And you can use old-fashioned oats or quick oats. I'm using quick oats today. Cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and then we'll mix it all together. And then into this we're going to add handful of chocolate chips, handful and a half chocolate chips. I was thinking of adding some walnuts to this as well, but I'm kind of losing steam for being in the kitchen. I want to chop up walnuts, so I'm just going to mix this together, and then we will have all 6 of our cookie recipes actually made, which is great. And there we go. I am going to get the kitchen all cleaned up, get everything put away. And then as the cookies finish, I'll just keep putting another batch in. And once I am finished getting the kitchen cleaned up, I'll meet you over at the kitchen table and we'll get some planting done. Had a small change of plans and decided to get all the cookies done before I got into getting my hands in the actual literal dirt over there with all the planting and tracking dirt back and forth into the kitchen. So I got the chocolate crinkle cookies, the wagon wheel cookies done down here, and the rest of the Snickerdoodles over here. So I wanted to share my thoughts on all of these cookies. I would say that these ones, the wagon wheel cookies, the Snickerdoodles, and the ginger snaps, they're all kind of a traditional sweet, chewy, decadent kind of cookie, especially the wagon wheel ones. They're kind of like a brownie and a cookie. And then the oatmeal cookies are a little bit of a hybrid between these ones, which I'll talk about in a sec, and these chewy, decadent, really sugary cookies. The strawberry cookies taste very similar to a strawberry scone, They have that kind of texture. Here, I'll show you. I can't eat anymore. I'm sorry, friends. I can't test all of these with you because I have had a bite out of each of these cookies and they're so sweet, and I just can't do anymore. But these ones are more of like a bread scone kind of texture, which is really lovely. They're not super sweet. They taste really good. The having the little bit of the lemon in there is really lovely. I would even suggest adding a little bit of lemon zest into these to add even a little bit more of that lemon flavor. And the same for these cookies here, definitely more of almost a muffin texture actually. You can see there. So these taste more like a muffin cookie. They hold together really nicely and they're not at all crumbly, which is great. Flavor's really good on these too. My plan with these now is I'm going to get them put into Ziploc bags and put into the freezer, and then I can just take a bag out when we want to have some cookies or we have company over, or grab a bag when we're going to go visiting. So I will keep a few of each of these cookies out so that we can snack on those over the next couple of days. So my favorite of all of these, it's really hard to say because they're so different, but I'd have to say probably the wagon wheel for the really sweet, chewy, decadent cookie, and then the strawberry one for more of a cake-like cookie. But these are also really good. In fact, they're all really good. So all of these recipes, highly, highly recommend. I'm gonna move all of these cookies over to that side of the kitchen. I just want them to cool fully before we put them into the freezer. And then I can do a little planting here where I can show you guys up close what I'm doing. It's the 20th of February today, and we're going to be starting celery, all of our onions, celeriac, fennel, leeks, what else? And artichoke. And we may plant a few other things depending on how many containers that I have left once we have all this planted. Probably not a lot because I do like to do upwards of 800 or so onions, but I'm going to show you how I start that many onions while conserving space, because that is a lot of onions. So you can see these little containers I have. I would prefer for these to be just a little bit deeper, but these are the ones I have. So these are the ones that I am using. I'm also going to be using some slightly larger ones that you can see here. So when you're planting onions, you do want to give them a lot of space for root growth because they have very vigorous root growth and they like to go down quite a ways. What I have already done here, and this is something that I do every time I'm going to be starting seeds, and it's very helpful, is I fill up my containers with soil and then I water them down really well before I put the seeds in. And then I take a container the same size as the ones that I have filled, and I just give the soil a little bit of a tamp down, like so. So the reason that you want to do that is because when you water the soil, likely you're going to lose some, what I'm going to call headspace here, which is my canning terminology that I use, but the space between the top of your container and your soil. You'll lose quite a bit of that when you do that first watering. And also you can give it a really good soak without worrying about dislodging your seeds or anything like that. So I usually water mine down a few hours before I'm actually going to plant, just to allow everything to settle. And then I'll take the container and I'll tamp down the soil just a little bit, like so, just to make sure it's all tamped down. And then I will top it off with whatever soil I need. So in this case, I just need a little bit of soil on the top of these. Actually, you know what? I think I probably have enough. I think this will do. So this is where I conserve space. Let's grab some of our, which onions should we do first? Let's do Patterson. So I buy most of my seeds from West Coast Seeds here in British Columbia, and they do ship all over the place. They're really good seeds. I can recommend them. So these ones are a coated seed. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here. They just have a little bit of a coating on them, and that just makes them easier to see and easier to plant. Onion seeds are very small and they can be hard to see. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plant around 20 seeds in each of these larger containers that I have here. So I'm just going to approximate around 20 seeds, and I'm going to sprinkle them on the top of the soil. And that may seem like a lot, but this size of container is more than sufficient to accommodate that many onions. What's really nice is when you're going to go plant these seedlings, the greens will be about this high. And as we go throughout the season of growing these, I'll show you all the things that I do for each stage. But you can just grab the greens on the top and pull the whole thing out, and all the roots will be kind of grown together, of course, growing all in one pot like this, but they tease apart super easily. And if they are having a hard time coming apart, you can just rinse them off in some water and they pull apart beautifully for planting. And I have been planting my onions like this now. I think this is the 4th year that I have done it. And I just love it. I would never do it any other way now at this point. And this is a trick that I learned from my friend Crystal from the Whole Fed Homestead, and it is just a fantastic one. Great way to plant onions. For the longest time, I used onion sets, and those are started bulbs, so they're just a little tiny onion bulb, and they get started the year previous to when you're going to plant them, and then they're pulled out of the ground and put into storage, and then when you get them, you can plant them, and it gives you, I guess it's a little bit more convenient, a little bit easier than starting them from seed like this. I'm gonna have to pay attention here so I don't overplant. But what it will do, because onions are a biennial, and that means that they send up usually their seed stock the 2nd year. And because you are planting a little bulb that is technically a 2nd year bulb, it signals to that plant to bolt, and that is to form its flower and produce its seed. I haven't had that happen on every single onion set that I've ever grown, but it definitely happens way more often than it does when you're starting your seeds like this. Also, the onions tend to be much smaller than doing it this way, and they don't usually store quite as well either. So all you're wanting to do basically is kind of evenly disperse your seed across the surface. I'm doing a few less in these smaller cells than I was, or smaller containers than I was in the larger ones. So these Patterson are an awesome onion for storage. Most of everything that I grow with the idea of being able to store it. So we're doing 20 per cell, so that's going to give us 20, 40, 60, 81, 20, 40, 60, 82, 200 there, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So 250 onions will come out of this one tray here. So see what I mean about conserving space? You can grow a lot in a small amount of space. So I do want to do mostly Pattersons because they're such a nice mid-sized storage onion. But there's some other varieties. I'm going to do Kelsey, which is a really big onion. I didn't get any that grew really, really big last year of the Kelseys, but I'm going to try again. This year, Red Wing, which is my favorite red onion to grow. It's a fantastic storage onion. And then Calibra, which is another one that I have grown the last couple of years that has also done really well. I like to try a couple of different varieties each year, just in case one of them doesn't do well for whatever reason. Okay, and then we're going to lightly cover these with a little bit of soil, and then I'm going to mist the top of them just to soak that soil down in over top of those seeds. So one thing when you're planting like this, I am going to want to use something that's kind of fine for misting, and I'll show you what I use the top of this, because if I was to just go dump, say, a cup of water in here, I would dislodge all those seeds that I evenly distributed across the top of my soil. So I'll show you what I use in just a sec as soon as I'm done covering these all up. I think it was definitely a good idea to get my baking done first before I got into planting. I do have a grow room downstairs, so that's where all these are gonna go, down there under grow lights, but it's not really big enough down there for filming as well. I can plant down there when it's just me, but when you're here with me, we need a little bit more space. And for seed starting, I just use straight up sun-grow organic potting soil. I don't get carried away with any kind of fancy stuff. And I generally do not fertilize my seedlings at all, unless I have a cold spring and everything needs to stay in the greenhouse for a bit longer and things are starting to look a little sad and like they're getting a little bit hungry, then I'll use some light fish fertilizer. But you want to be really careful fertilizing seedlings because you can actually cause more damage to them than just leaving them alone by adding too strong of a fertilizer. Okay, now I'm going to take our container here and I'm going to just push down lightly on the top of the soil just to tamp it down a little bit. This is what I use for watering, especially when my seedlings are really tiny like this. And once they get a little bit bigger, I take the end off and I can get a more vigorous stream of water. This works really, really well for watering, especially indoors. It's actually a chemical sprayer, but works really well for this purpose. It's just pressured with air. Just want to soak everything down, but remember, because I already have my soil really well moistened, I don't have to worry about soaking it so that there's water actually coming out of the bottom of our containers. Just want to dampen that soil that I just put in on the top here. This sprayer works really well for teeny tiny little seeds, like what would be a good example? Snapdragons would be an example. I have some of those started that I started last week. They're such a tiny seed and they actually just go on the top of the soil. But this is such a fine mist that it doesn't dislodge those little seeds. Pansies would also be an example. Petunias would be a really good example because those are just teeny tiny seeds. I wanted to get my petunias started, but for some reason I missed ordering. So I placed an order the other day and we'll hopefully be able to get those started next week because they do take a long time. I wanted to get some early ones so that I could have some early blooms, but better late than never, I suppose. So we have somewhere around 360 or so started on this one. I'm just gonna push these to the back here. I'll take those down later. So sometimes with this potting soil, you'll get sticks in it like that. I just pull those out. So I've done the same thing here. I filled these up, I've watered them, go along and tamp them down. And I'm gonna go have to get some markers because otherwise I'm gonna forget what's in here. I will tell myself that I won't forget and then I'll forget. So one sec. So I just use a yogurt container or a sour cream container and I just cut these into strips. And then I'll write the name and the date. So I am using a permanent marker here. This isn't going to be, these won't be going outside, these tags. But normally if I am going to be using, or I'm going to be putting tags out in the garden, I use a waxed pencil crayon because it lasts better and longer than a permanent marker does. I grew fennel for the first time last year and I absolutely loved it. So I am growing it again this year. One more seed hiding in there. I'm surprised that I liked it because I don't like fennel, black licorice flavor, anything like that, but fennel fresh added to like a veggie bake is absolutely incredible. I will need to pot these ones up. One of the nice things about planting the onions this way is there's no potting up or anything like that required. Potting up just means moving your plant from a smaller container to a larger container. I will have to with these guys. So I am adding 2 seeds per cell here. And I know that the germination rate on these last year was really good. This is the second year, 2-year-old seeds here. So I'm going to use 2 seeds per one. And if they both come up, then I'll just divide them out and put them into larger containers. So these ones are called Dragon F1 Fennel. And I will add a little bit of soil to these once I get the rest of my seeds in here planted. We are going to do some Imperial Star artichoke. Last year was the first year that I grew artichoke. And outside of the aphids that I ended up having with them, I noticed aphids on them around mid-August. And I decided, because I was so close to the end of the season at that point, that I would just leave them be. I wish I hadn't done that because they really caused a lot of damage. And both of the artichoke plants, or I think I grew 3, actually started to bloom, but they're just, the aphids were all over them. So this year I will make sure that I stay on top of the aphid issue and not let it get away even if it is late in the season. So I'm going to do the same thing with these seeds. These are also last year's seeds. I'm going to plant 2 seeds per cell. And for those of you that are new to my channel and came during the winter time, where I am doing a lot of cooking, because that's usually what I do here on my channel in the winter, seeing me planting seeds might seem a little bit out of, I don't know, out of what you're used to seeing me do. But gardening, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if I did mention this, is something that I just absolutely love. I'm passionate about it. And it is where a lot of the food that you see in my pantry and a lot of the food that you see me cook throughout the winter comes from. It all starts here as these little tiny seeds in these little tiny containers, and then turns into a big, abundant, beautiful garden in the summertime. Pretty much everything I share here on my channel revolves around food in some way. One way or another. Okay, that one is Imperial Star. Now we will do we're gonna do some leeks. I wanna do my celery next, I think. So tango, celery. I've also done Utah, tall something. I can't remember what the variety was that I grew last year. I usually grow a couple of different varieties, but this year I'm just gonna do the tango, which I've done for a few years, and it's a good one. So these are an example of teeny tiny little seeds. I'll show you here. And whenever I'm dumping my seeds out, I always do it over top of the containers that I'm going to be planting them in, and that way if I miss any, and I can also shake this out, it just goes into the soil here. So you can see how tiny those seeds are. Aren't they little? So what we're gonna do here is loosen up the top of our soil just a little bit. And we're going to put a few little of these tiny, teeny little seeds. It's probably looking more like 4 or 5 seeds in here. Because they're so tiny, it's hard to only put 2. But I'm putting a couple in, and then I'll just divide these up. I plant quite a bit of celery because I freeze dry it. You can also just freeze it if you don't have a freeze dryer. And I add it to everything, all my soups and my stews in the winter time. So I'm gonna plant, let's see, 8, 16, we'll do 24. That should be sufficient. And then again, the same when I'm putting the back in, so that I can dump all the extras on there. And that will go this way. And then I know that everything that's on this side is this. So there is another tray. All right, friends, I think I am going to call it quits for right now. Pour myself a cup of tea, have a little bit of a break, and then get to planting the rest of these. So I'll probably be planting, I'd say, probably 6 more trays of seedlings before the day is through. Once these start coming up, I'll take you on a little tour of my grow room and show you what I have growing down there when there's something to see, because right now it's just trays of soil. Once it's a little more fun, I'll show you. I also wanted to remind you about the free month that I'm offering at the Little Mountain Ranch community. You can find more information about that and all the details about what I offer as part of my community down in the pinned comment and in the show notes below. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.